On the Face of It by Danielle Ackley-McPhail, from the Chaos Clock. It began with I. His voice rasped from the deep shadows of the drawn bed curtains, breaking on the softest of syllables, only to ring out with the sharpness of drawn steel. But it ends with me. Oh, by God, it did. It must. It will. One way or the other, I. Now's a fine time to decide that after. His head, or perhaps just his hair, thrashed, the bright glow of his bandages remaining turned away as he went on in mounting victual, seemingly arguing amongst himself. Some subtle modulations of tone caught my ear. I shifted in the chair I had pulled up beside the bed, leaning ever so slightly closer, rapt by his diatribe. My efforts to glean the discourse for details of significance had thus far yielded nothing, until I grew desperate. Reckless, perhaps. The man I observed stilled, his muscles taut, of a sudden alert, where before his attention turned only inward to his ever-fracturing turmoil. With slow deliberation, his head rotated in my direction. I swallowed a gasp at the 2 spots of faint rose hue seeping to the surface of the stark white gauze, in mockery of what had once been his eyes. A low, harsh rustle came from the bedding as the patient shifted. "Oi, back yourself off," the orderly barked, his rough hands grasping my shoulder and yanking me away, chair and all, even as the damaged soul on the mattress lunged forward, his equally gauze-wrapped hand grasping, I suppose, for my arm, though his fingers were encased. For the briefest of moments, the skin of his bare wrist brushed mine before the burly man drew me out of reach. My flesh burned like the cold of deep winter, nay, like the everlasting void seeping into my soul. I shuddered and rubbed at my wrist, the sensation dissipating as if it had never been, a fancy of the mind built upon rumor and speculation. "Right, off with you then." The orderly pointed at the door, brooking no argument. But his broad brow furrowed into deep valleys, his eyes aglint with annoyance. "You weren't to rile him. You has, so out you go. It'll take all day and half the night getting him settled again." Quite uncustomary to my nature, my blue blood rose to the surface, a kindling flame that warmed my cheeks but left my gaze cold. I stood, shoulders back and spine straight, as only the strictest of done-away upbringings could instill, honed through 12 generations. Slowly, my head tilted just so as to gaze down the slope of my nose at this common man. The essence of a sneer toyed with the corner of my lip, but I did not indulge it. Without further word, I strode from the room, distinctly unsettled.